So I started recording, and I'm just gonna giving Pat a couple minutes. I'll ask any of you if you've been on the student site and you looked at any of their essays, book reviews, the book review posts that they those little paragraph posts. And if you got any thoughts or perspectives or any surprises or anything that you'd like to share as far as feedback from what you feel these sergeants are getting out of it or not.
I'll get in there today. I've been drowning in op orders here this week, so I haven't had a chance to get in there.
Hey, on that, Tim, I don't know your TTP, but I'm teaching Kurt course this cycle around, and man, I carved out 20 minutes the week before and kind of edited the Road to War, and I conveyed it as if I was the company commander, and made them break out papers, pens, and said, this is to you platoon commanders. And, I think that really helped because my amount of remediation required declined drastically.
Yeah.
Hey, Pat, what's up? You're on your way. Okay, good deal. Yeah, just park next to me in the backside. So you're about 5 out. Oh, all right, good deal. So you're a couple minutes out. All right, got it. 2 minutes. We'll see you then. Yeah, just park next to me. It may look illegal, but it's okay. We'll give the ticket to Paul. What's that? Yeah. All right. I'll see you in a minute, man. Yeah, so that was Tracy. He's we're dealing with the same kind of weather that Luzern's dealing with, and he said coming back from his appointment, there's cars pulled over on 95, and he's just trying to get here, but he had to go a little bit slower.
So we can just come in at 11 when it rains?
Yeah. So is anybody else taking a look at any of the posts or book review documents or anything?
Hey, Casey, I've been, like Tim, I've been teaching a course, man, staff course. I haven't had the opportunity. Been doing some remediation with some of the students, so I haven't been in there.
Okay.
So what was the your overall take there, Keith?
Yeah, so I'll start with that. Pat should be here in a minute, and I want to give his perspective as well, because we didn't have a whole lot of time to talk after the lesson last night. But I thought that it was good use time. It was something that should be required, that they actually brief their peers and either recommend this book or not, and recommend it or not because of relative to their sergeants, so their peer sergeants, what are they getting out of it or not? And about 4 of them pretty much knocked it out of the park, and all 4 of those, when they briefed why, their peers were scribbling down, and making sure that they were going to be one of the next books that they had read, and why, and the applications of it was probably the most prominent thing. But I hadn't read the book reviews themselves yet. Just like you guys have been swamped with teaching career course. I got an RCI that never lets off the pedal, and when I do read the book reviews, I'm sure that it's going to be similar to what I've already read on their posts, and their posts were very well written. succinct, good reasons why they recommend or not recommend. We have one naysayer in the group that quartered and Sheridan Court. What was the no quarter safe here? And yeah, no quarter. Yeah, I can't recall the title of the book, but she was pretty adamant about, sergeants don't need to be reading this book. But from the assignment perspective, I think that bang for the buck. They put a lot of effort into it. It definitely showed, and it's something that I think that should continue. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Hey, real quick, did you guys drop us into the actual site? Because I'm still on the sandbox and then the master, but I don't see the actual site. I thought you guys were going to give us access to the grade center.
As TAs, no?
All I got is the sandbox and the master, which means I can't get into the grade center or see student submissions.
When I get down here, I thought I'd already put all you guys in as teaching assistants. I'll fix that as soon as I go back to the office then.
Okay.
I thought we did that weeks ago. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I did too. I thought it was the master, but I guess not.
Yeah, I must have somehow screwed that up. Sorry.
Got any thoughts on
anyway.
That?
I did read the book reviews and the discussion board posts. Some of them looked similar, and then I think the students just missed the ball a little bit, but most were different enough that I think they got the point that one was a little less formal and meant to be more of a peer-to-peer thing rather than a scholarly paper to be turned in. But they did a great job on this, the whole thing, both reading the book review, the discussion board post, and then even last night, the in-class exercise. They seem to have gotten a lot out of the book. They're very enthused by it. There are great things to say. A lot of them were quoting directly from the book in order to get points across. So it was pretty impressive the way they were able to take a book, break it down, do what we asked them to do, and then, like, if you were just sitting in a room listening to them last night and talking about their book, to the point where one kid got up and was drawing a diagram on the board to better explain, because that was, the primary point he got out of his book. It was pretty highbrow type stuff, so well worth keeping, well worth continuing to do that. And I do think we should take some student input, though. If there's a book on there, and the one naysayer, it was a female, and she said she's a very avid reader, and it's not that she doesn't like reading. She said that book just bored the living hell out of her. She just couldn't. It was just boring, academic, repetitive, and it was just. She said it was just a very, very difficult read. Whereas most of the other ones that they promoted their book. They liked it, that they were able to articulate what was good about it for sergeants, and it seemed like they got a lot out of that particular assignment. I would say more so than the papers or the essay. Like, they seem to really have gotten a lot out of the reading when you look at it as a whole. With last night's in-class exercise, the 4 stages we went through with the book report or the book review.
Yeah, so that was kind of the intro. We were missing a student last night. He had to do online for this week, so we had 10 present, 11 present, and Pat, myself, Tim Devlin showed up at the end for the TDG, and then we had another external observer, a staff sergeant, former career course seminar learner, come in and give some perspective and insights. But I'm going to let Pat talk about how his approach and how he took the spool and did some massaging on it and how he executed. Yeah.
All right. So if you look at the spool, sorry about that. You look at this spool, we start the class, and it says 1 to 2 minute individual presentations on why they believe their choice is important to the profession of a Marine Sergeant. Backtracking just a little bit, we opened up the usual first 10 minutes was little bit of admin, any questions, quiz problems, of which we're narrowing those down to near to zero. Questions on turned out with the book review format, the PDF format they can download. It's the same format that we use to download the essay, except it wasn't active. So the student would download it to the desktop, then they couldn't type on it or upload any of their work to it. Many of them were smart enough to call me, and I said, look, just submit it as a Word doc. Don't worry about putting it on that document. Many just went ahead and submitted it as a Word doc with a nasty ground post to their instructor, like, man, I've tried everything. This doesn't work. This program sucks, and I'm just submitting this. I hope you don't fail me. You know, those kind of comments. But there was a lot of frustration on the fact that we had a template that didn't work. So we covered that, fixed it, rolled into class to what I knew was not going to be a 15 to 20-minute assignment for the book choice for two reasons. One, I have 11 students, so even if they each did 2 minutes, right there is 22 minutes. But knowing my students, I knew that they were going to run 2 to 3 minutes minimum. And knowing my students, I knew that their other fellow students were going to ask a question or two of each student. So I was just staring this thing in the face, and I knew this was going to take me about 40 minutes, which it did. If you add the 10 minutes previous to that, that took my first 50 minutes, and then I put about a 10-minute break. Like I said, I went in knowing that, and then I went in also knowing I had to get through 5 IFCs on the spool, plus the intro, so call it 6, about resiliency. And the spool is a little bit, this spool is really good for telling the instructor, hey, bring up this reading, or bring up this question, or ask this, ask that. So my outline under each subsection of the IFC, I had 2 or 3 or even sometimes 4 questions to ask. And once again, knowing my students, I knew that I was not going to get through this, the second hour of my class and be able to cover the IFCs in depth. Every single IFC, I had to cut them short. I had to stop conversation, move on to the next question or the next topic. And you can tell some of them were getting a little bit frustrated. And it's because this group really does like to debate and discuss, and everybody does have something to say. And it just is what it is. I had to cut a bunch of them short on a bunch of times, knowing that I was going to need the final 40 to 45 minutes for the TDG, and then the closeout for to brief next week. I, as an instructor, felt like I had to rush through some of the resiliency IFCs because of that. I kind of knew it was coming, so I was prepared for that. But I think you could tell some of the students were a little frustrated in that they just didn't get to say what they wanted to say. And what I ended up doing a little bit, I cut out a whole lot of the PTSD, the Oscar, all the things that we address when resiliency fails. I wanted to focus more on how do we build it, how do we train for it, talk about resiliency, what makes us tough, the Beware of Achilles reading, which I think was great. And the video that they watched, they had a lot of things to say about that. They were referencing the hell out of the readings. I've been harping on them on that from the beginning. If you go through, when you have access, you'll see my grade book where I constantly dig them on not using source material or not bringing in that into their arguments. They were doing great on doing that. A lot of them had their readings printed out and highlighted, and I can tell they wanted to demonstrate the fact that they were ready to debate something and use the source material, and I really do feel like I cut them short a little bit on that. And I think one of the students at the end mentioned to Keith that they felt like the resiliency felt a bit rushed, that they had more to say and weren't given a chance to say it. So, and I have two areas where I think we can fix that a little bit, but we could talk about that. Tim and Keith and I talked about that last night when we left class. Okay, that rolled us into the TDG. The TDG, both the instructor guide to school, or the instructor guide kind of has the how to do it. The way I broke it down is I let them all read the scenario, and then I basically went around the room and picked 4 volunteers. Hey, give me your color right now. What would you do? You have 2 minutes. And then they were starting to try to brief how they would move the squad or what they would do. When the one kid got done, I said, anybody got anything different? The other kid said, yeah, I would flank right instead of left because there's high ground on the right, there's no high ground on the left. One said he would do this. So it ended up that we had 3 or 4 different opinions of how to crack that nut, and 3 of them mirrored pretty well the solutions that are actually proposed. So what I did then is I broke them down into 3 groups, gave them their group's solution, to which they had 15 minutes to discuss what their squad did, and then I asked them to answer questions. What was good about it? What was bad about it? What's your biggest concern? What would you do if this? What are assumptions you're making? And I barely briefed them into net. And I just basically covered the very basics because we're not even in warfighting yet. I said, remember mission, enemy, troops and fire support, terrain, weather. I said, think about these things as you're coming up with your scenario. And then each group got up in front of the class. I put their particular solution on the big board, and they were basically using it as like a map chip pointing to how they would maneuver their troops around and the questions and assumptions they had that. The other groups were asking them questions. It was a really good TDG, I thought, for the level that they're at, and we're not having, us dipped into warfighting yet. I will tell you that as I was developing my school, I just thought this was an odd place for a TDG, because I didn't think it 100% tied into resiliency in too many ways, and I was like, once again, I knew I was cutting my resiliency short, and I just thought it was, I know we want to get into doing TDGs and stuff like that, but even while developing my lesson plan, I was just looking at this as a bit odd. Now, as far as the value, I think the value is great. I think they got a lot out of it. I think it was a great intro to doing TDGs and briefing your COAs. I'm just wondering if it needs to be in resiliency when honestly you need about 2 hours to get through the resiliency IFCs. The other side of that coin is, what if we didn't have them all start with the book review piece? What if we were a little more robust in the discussion board, because we're already making them do a discussion board post. However, we're not having them respond peer-to-peer within the discussion board. Once they post their less formal book review, if that makes any sense. So I'm wondering if we couldn't have just kept all that in the discussion board and let the instructor have the first 2 hours for resiliency and then thereby keep the TDG, or go ahead and keep everything as is, start with the book review thing, and then let us roll through the resiliency.
Yeah, I guess that was my question too.
Next week, maybe elsewhere.
How does it?
That's 2 separate codes.
How does the?
It just felt.
How does the TDG relate to resiliency? Is my question.
You're breaking up.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. So the spirit behind why the TDG was placed in resiliency was because we wanted more. Yeah.
I heard part of that. I heard part of that. Can you hear me?
Okay, so, yep, we can hear you. So the spirit of why this TDG was placed in this particular lesson, a couple reasons. One, we wanted more exercises within, and TDGs are part of that because the resident school, they do the shooting, and they have to give direction, etc. So we wanted a crawl, walk, run, kind of construct into tactical decision making, and so where do you put it? We wanted an extra one, so we thought we would put it right before the start of warfighting, and it happened to be in the resiliency lesson. Now, a couple codes going forward. Next week, I'm going to be teaching warfighting. Warfighting is got a pair of TDGs inside of it. At the end of that, then I'm going to give Tim my recommendation on either removing the TDG from the resiliency lesson and or keeping it there and doing what Pat had just described, making the book review a little bit more robust. So what's the risk? What do we lose? The risk is that all the work that they did in these book reviews, they won't be able to leverage, if you will, and kind of champion these books and why these books are so important to their peers. And they won't be presenting something, and conveying their opinion on the importance of the professional reading list. So the other risk is that we do these TDGs next week, and maybe we have to start at a crawl there instead of getting into a jog and a run. So we're going to assess that, and we'll either one of those has to happen to give us some more maneuver area to discuss resiliency. And Tim was there last night seeing the TDG happen. Pat, me, of course, had the same feelings. We were there for the entire lesson. And then the student that said, I had so much more that I was hoping to hear about the IFCs from my peers. And this was a student that was a sergeant who works in a closet somewhere in NSA, who has no experience in any theater. But here or there, it was perspective that needs to be considered, and we do all, I think, collectively agree that we need more maneuver area for this lesson on resiliency specifically. So how do we create that? Those are the two things that we're struggling with. We're going to have better fidelity next week at the end of the warfighting lesson.
Yeah, and I'll throw out the challenge there too, because unlike the academy, we don't have the ability to, when we set up our seminars or at the academy set up the platoons, at the academy they get to put their combat arms guys mixed in with each of those platoons or conference groups. And out here we have seminars that might be all Air Wing Marines. And so what ends up happening with these TDGs is the instructor has to try to dilute it down to, hey, I don't care about tactics. I know you don't know any of these weapon systems. I know you don't know anything with, maneuvering troops as an infantry leader. So just make a decision based on what you have. And that's where I think the value of these TDGs just really, I really question the value of it, because we don't have the same capabilities that the academy does to develop each one of the groups.
Hey, Jim, if I could chime in on that, I real quickly, to start it, and it sounds stupid, I said, okay, listen, here's the deal. A squad is 13 people, 3 teams of 4, and a squad leader. Here's the weapons you have. I said a machine gun squad is 2 guns, 7 people total. Here's what the weapon is. And I just real quickly surface brushed. Okay, so now you have 20 people, basically 5 machine guns if you count the saws. Here's what you have, and that's all you have. That seemed to help them, because they all acknowledge, hey, we can't maneuver a squad against a platoon-sized force. We need to wait. The best we can do is maybe get a base of fire, or even if we do flank them, not flank to attack, flank more to fix them in place. You'd have been surprised. I mean, and like Keith said, I got a bunch of geeks that work in closets, and they had the rudiments of the at least task purpose. Just like they weren't like in their own battle space. Like they were pretty tactically sound for what they were trying to say, and I did lead them into it a little bit, like, hey, look, locate, fix, and destroy the enemy, and I just gave them the basics of it. So I was pretty impressed with just the level they came across. I only got 1 grunt in the class, he gave his opinions, but he didn't really even dominate his own group, to be honest. So I see the fear on that, but I think just I was impressed last night with the fact that without a single ground combat type guy or girl in the class, they did pretty well on it, as far as coming from a knowledge of near zero.
Yeah, I guess, but we get a couple layers down, and does my dispersing chief master sergeant, who's an adjunct faculty for me, does he have all those details in order to explain that preface to the students when they're starting off, and then at the end of the TDG, I'm asking, what do the students walk away with that is now beneficial for them?
Yeah. Hey, Tim, this is Tim. I'm sitting in the back. One, it's on us to write TDGs that are that have an impact without a whole lot of advanced tactical knowledge. To be honest, I think one thing we're going to disagree on, and that's okay. We can continue the conversation. But I see more and more in our Marine Corps where we're too comfortable saying, well, he's just on the left, so he doesn't need to know any tactics whatsoever. You know, there are common combat skills that we require of all sergeants in this case, and we shouldn't shy away from that too much. That being said, they're not going to lead a night attack. I get that, you know. So one, I'm not as hesitant as I think some others are to have them do tactical things. But the takeaway, and that's the key part that we've got to capture in our schools, and I'm looking at my guys here, is what are they taking away? What I see is, you know, the big takeaway in a lot of these is as we get into the warfighting package, well, one, we need to define it. So sometimes it's tasting friction, tasting lack of knowledge, tasting bias for action, whatever the case is. I think we can hit on those things if that's our goal. Later on, when we get into the troop leading steps, I really think a big part of our takeaway on this is the fact that the troop leading steps is your planning process. So as a lot of guys come to a TDG, they're like, and they're looking, their aperture is just way too wide. And we help them in their decision making by walking the dog. Okay, what is your mission? Well, my mission is this. So we got to clearly articulate a mission, task, and purpose. Okay, what do you think the enemy's doing? You know, so you help them to use a process to go from, oh, I don't know what the hell's going on here, to, okay, I'm not really comfortable in this position, but I'm on the spot, so what's the process where I neck it down? That's what we're going for. I'm not sure we always hit the mark, but I'm comfortable going after sergeants of all MOSs with that.
And that's what we end up doing out here is, like, okay, you know, we'll put them through the stresses of the situation, and then we try to talk to them about, okay, where did you see friction? How can we lessen that friction? Where were the lacks of communication? Did you see, you know, identifying those outlying? And I agree with that. Do you think it belongs here in resiliency, though, if that's the topic for the lesson?
Probably not. You know, again, Keith talked to this a little bit. Back here, you know, talking to the director of EPME, that's his one concern with the seminar. It's not some of the other things, it's the SULI. You know, how do we replicate the SULI? Well, we can't, but we can try to do some things. And you know what I told him? We're going to start with some of these TDGs and look for ways to improve upon it. So Keith was reacting, I think, partially to my direction to, hey, I want to make sure we kind of get them into several TDGs. Haven't sat through it last night? No, it doesn't fit there. We've kind of already said that. We need to adjust. So. Or at least make more time. Will it stay here? Probably not. But we'll look at that.
If I could say something, what I would have liked about that, had we not started with the book review thing, because 2 hours that's right at the edge of way too much talking about resiliency, because you're not going to get a 3-hour class out of those IFCs, but you will fill 2. Had we gotten into the more heavier part about PTSD, the suicides, and Oscar and all that, that would have been a nice way to take a break, come in, hey, we're going to leave the world we were just talking about, and before next week, we're going to try one of these TDGs on for science, just to, you know, like as an intro to. So then I think it sort of would have fit there as a segue into warfighting and into the next week, and into just getting used to getting up and briefing your TDG. I just felt that it was squashed between the other two, which is what took away from the resiliency. But if we did something different with the book review, I think it would fit there just if for no other reason, as a little bit of break from the end of the heaviness of talking about resiliency, because we were getting into some heavy topics, you know, loss of life and suicide, and the Marines weren't talking about these things. And I think it is a good segue into the following week. Get them ready. So I think there it would fit more than in its current structure of it just seems to be a kind of disjointed class a little bit. But I actually liked finishing the class on that note. I think so that the students, you know, I kind of charged them up a little bit. They were into the TDG. They enjoyed doing it, you could tell. You know, I'm about 6 of one and a half dozen of the other on getting rid of it. But I do see the value of having done that. Now Pete isn't going in the next week cold and having to reteach how to do the basics of reading the information in the TDG and coming up with a good quick plan. So for me, that's the kind of...
Yeah, and maybe if when we do these TDGs, that we help them out with the little stuff from 5-12 or something along the lines that says, okay, here's an infantry platoon, here's the weapon systems they have organic to them, here's what they normally are responsible for, maybe a little preface in the TDG to kind of develop it so the instructor can pick that up and there are no questions or nothing that he has to explain.
Yeah, Tim, we're putting like the definition of fix in parentheses behind it. We're putting a legend for, you know, a fire team leader symbol. So we are continuing to refine our TDGs as we go along.
Yeah, yes, that's great. And when your instructors struggle with this, Tim, please give that back to us because we'll do everything we can to help with that. You know, I don't think the answer is no TDGs, but I do think we've got to make sure we articulate what we're trying to get out of the TDG and give the faculty and the students the tools to do that. And I know we've missed the mark. I think we've tightened up the Women Career Course, and I think it's pretty good now, in my opinion. You know, we'll continue to do that.
Yeah, I think clearly defining the end state at the beginning of each of those schools. Okay, at the end of this is what we want them, what we want to see, whether it's making a decision, identifying the friction points or the elements involved in the situation. I think that would help us out here.
Yeah, hey Tim, Bryce here is in the room, and you know he's got this edit modification for action. So if you or anybody else that's on the line, if you have considerations that you know he should be thinking through, if you want to send those to him. But he's heard everything you guys have already said. Plus he's already gotten feedback from Pat, from Tim, from myself. So he's all over it. And just like Tim Devlin said, we're going to continue to you know, live in an uncertain world, but try to find certainty. You know. Which chief instructors do we have on one?
We got Tank. Yeah. We got Tank, Chris Marvin, Tim Weber, Dwayne, and that's it.
Yeah, got the 18. Yeah.
One thing I'm going to tell you, and I probably think out loud too often, you know, and share my thoughts, and I'm going to do that now. One thing I will tell you, we are going to do whatever we can to tighten up the seminar, Sergeant's Course seminar for your execution. I will also share with you that we're at a point right now where I'm running the same guys that are writing the Advanced Course seminar are modifying the Sergeant's Course seminar. And I've told them that we've got an executable pilot for the Sergeant's Course now. We don't have an executable pilot for the Advanced Course. So if push comes to shove, I've told them they got to write Advanced Course before they clean up Sergeant's Course. All I can tell you is we're going to do our best. You may see some things in your pilot that you thought we said we would clean up. Please capture it if that's the case. I'm just telling you what we're wrestling with timelines here. You know, so please continue to give us the feedback. We will capture it all. We will make what we can, but we're really getting that crunch time for Advanced Course seminar as well at this point.
Yeah, I think he was talking about ensuring you guys showed up at workshop able to work like 16-hour days or something to help us.
Well, Pat just got there at 11, so I'm kind of seeing the work schedule battle rhythm, and I'm not sure what he's wearing. My screen won't get any bigger, but it almost looks like a female top there or something. It's all legal. It's all legal now.
Okay. Any safe rounds?
None from Count Hamilton.
Once again, I'll have my good, bad, ugly report on this. I'll include my lesson plan, and you know, like I said, by the end, I'll have all of that for you and send it to everybody, so that even if we don't get around to some of these fixes, you as the chief instructor at least will have the heads up of what Pat thinks and what worked and what didn't, and you know, so you'll be going in a little bit better armed than I am. You know, I hope that's at least my goal, to help you out. And you know, I can tell you right now, through week 8, I think the students are getting a lot out of it. They continually reference in class how they're bringing this stuff back to work, and it's making an impact in their work sections. They're really, really engaged with the material, and even with the fixes we've been proposing here and there, I think the lessons are pretty solid. You know, we're kind of learning as we go, but with the tweaks I think you can make from the product I give you, you know, your pilot's going to be better than mine. So I think we're on a really good track with this one, to be honest. Like, I'm not where I'm feeling like, oh, if I gave this to an instructor, he's going to struggle with the material a little bit. And up here in Quantico, I'm going to have one of my instructors teaching the next pilot, so I'll be able to oversee that and make reports on if the new instructor is struggling with any of the material based off of what I give them to teach. So that would be another, you know, I'll have another pot of lessons learned in addition to you guys teaching it with what I learned from having an instructor teach it for the first time. That's all I got. Unless any of you have questions for me.
So I assume we're going to set aside time at the workshop to go over, just kind of walk in person, kind of go through this. And I asked Paul last week about a CCRB for the career course during the workshop. He said that we are doing it. I don't know if we're not going to change anything or accept the recommendations, or at least discuss the recommendations from the regions. Maybe we should focus on the sergeant's course if we're going to be crunched for time.
Yeah, that's part of the plan, is to walk through the sergeants. CCRB for the career is probably going to be modified and/or shift. In other words, it's not going to be a full-blown CCRB, or it just may shift out. But of course, if you have stuff that you want to brief and/or concern, Tim's still in the room, and you know, he's giving you the north and the south. Go ahead and bring it. So, so to confirm that statement, yes, we're going to discuss both of those. And sergeant's probably more in particular than.
Yeah, because I mean, it's going to be more robust this time than it was obviously when we did it 2 years ago, and I think we only had like 4 regions actually running the career course. So.
Hey, listen, every time you're talking about this conference and the word more robust, I'm seeing less and less golf time there, brothers.
I know, but well, we can just come in at 11. We can just start work at 11 and then work till we're done.
I'm on West Coast time, all right?
Hey, yeah, so certainly our focus will be sergeant course seminars, since that's what you're going to go back and execute. We'll probably, what we'll attempt to do is fill off a section of time where we can go through, you know, what you guys have provided, topic discussion recommendation, what's getting implemented, and what's put on the shelf, and what's we're not going to implement, because I think we owe you that. So so we'll try to hit the other, but the focus will be sergeant's course seminar.
And then are we going to touch on the advanced course thing? I know I saw your schedule through the RDs today that we're still doing the pilot for advanced course in October, and then regions in February.
We'll take a look at the time. Again, priority will be sergeant's course seminar. We'll have to talk the schedule, and you know, some topic areas advanced course, but it's not going to be as in depth as probably you may like. But we'll maximize the time we have with you. I guarantee that.
Okay. Are we going to get? And this is kind of a company question. Are we going to get time with Bill to kind of, so we're all in the same room and talk about the potential of single RCIs in regions running 3 programs by themselves in February?
Yeah, so the workshop, mainly this time, the focus is going to be at the programs. So we'll have more time with you. And one of the afternoons is always given to Bill to get with all his employees.
Okay. Because I know they're arbitrating the option year 1 requirements, and without an approval for these things to run, my fear is that we come into it unprepared and end up not running the course, or we end up doing a big boatload of stuff as single RCIs out here.
Yeah. I hear what you're saying. Certainly, I would say that we're leaning towards, I think we're assuming that at some point it's going to be approved. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So decisions are being made based on that, rather than, well, we're going to wait until we get a decision. Kevin's smart about that. He knows not to get caught on his heels. So it's a valid concern. I think it's moving in the direction that you would hope it would.
Okay.
Yeah, so any more RFIs, inquiries, concerns? Great. So this will be recorded, and I'm going to apologize up front because Collaborate, as far as converting this thing to an MP4 and getting it uploaded to YouTube, I will hit convert, and it'll sit there all day spinning, and I'll try the next day, etc. And eventually it does happen, but for those that don't know, you can also just go to Collaborate, the tool, and then type in the dates of the last 3 months or whatever, and then you can see all of our recorded sessions and be able to access them there as well. I'm going to throw one additional thing out there. The reason that we had to move this to 11 was because we gave a brief over at the university to directors of education from each of the services, including JSAL, MARSOC was there, Joint Staff was there, etc. And the Navy wanted to ensure that if they had the opportunity to send their sergeants, staff sergeants, gunnery sergeants equivalents to our seminar programs, that they would be allowed. And this Navy Education Training Command Master Chief or whatever is going to go on a road show in May, and he is going to preach because he loves everything that he heard about what our programs can do for his sailors. So you may see an increase in inquiry from the Joint Services is the point of that.
That's great. So the Marine Corps won't approve it, but other services want to join.
Hey, I graduated in Navy guys from career course last cycle, so the model has been proven it does work.
Yeah, I saw that.
We could get them on MarineNet account, and then they could do the prereq, so that's not a holdup, just like we do international or any other students. So
well, maybe we should just start teaching E5, E6, and E7 from other branches of service.
Hey, you know what? We fill up our seminars quicker, I bet you.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay.
Well, hey, Pat, can you drop me into your sergeant's course so I can start changing grades?
Yeah. What I would like for you to do is go on the grade book and just change everything if you wouldn't mind.
Okay.
All right. Well, Quantico is rounds complete here.
All right. See you guys. Sorry I did all the talking.
That's all right, Tim. If you weren't talking, I think you were dead.
Roger out.
All right, fellas, out here.
Out here.